Welcome to Blended Scotch Reviews, episode number 13, and Scotch Match number 3, take 2. Tonight, we've got J&B Rare versus Cutty Sark. Today is May 19th, 2025. I have previously reviewed both of these two Scotch blends. I've enjoyed them both, but tonight, I hope to see which one I really like the best, at least for today. And that's kind of the goal of the tournament. My rules. This contest will be conducted using blacked out glasses that have been mixed up so that I do not know which is which. On the bottom of each glass is a number. Cutty Sark is number 1, J&B is number 2. I will briefly discuss the history of each whiskey and evaluate which one has the best history, and then again the same for bottle, label, and marketing. Price, value, and availability, but the real decision is all about the nose, taste, mouthfeel, burn, and finish. The basic question is, if I was given the opportunity to drink only one of these two whiskeys offered to me 5 nights in a row, which one would I choose to drink 3 out of the 5 nights? Now, in case of a tie, and that does sometimes occur, then the price, value, and availability decides the winner. The winner might get a cocktail in its honor. So first of all, history. Cutty Sark. I'm surprised that they don't put the year 1698 on the bottle, as that's the year that Berry Brothers and Root started business as a wine and spice importer. They moved into whiskey not until 1915. And on 23rd of March 1923, they made a decision to start this blended whiskey, even though America was just beginning that noble experiment called Prohibition. Now, the famous clipper ship, Cutty Sark, had just been retired in 1922. And back in its heyday, it was the fastest of the clipper ships and was therefore famous, hence the name for this Scotch. So, and actually the Cutty Sark ship was named for a line from the poem Tam O'Shanter by Robert Burns, the famous Scotch poet. And the word comes from the archaic Scottish term meaning short nightshirt. In the poem, there's a farmer named Tam, and he is chased by a witch wearing only a Cutty Sark, a short nightshirt. The whiskey was deliberately crafted as a light whiskey for the American palate and was still sold to America despite prohibitions by Bill McCoy, who was running cases out of Rum Row just outside the 12-mile limit off the northeast coast. After Prohibition ended, sales of Cutty Sark exploded all across the nation. In 1961, Cutty was the first Scotch to sell over 1 million cases in America, and it was, of course, the number 1 Scotch. In 2010, the Edgerton Group bought Cutty Sark from Berry Brothers and Root, and for a while, it was a brother blend with the famous Grouse, sharing many of the same single malts. In 1963, a small bottle of this whiskey Cutty, was smuggled into Mercury 9 spacecraft by astronaut Gordon Cooper, who took it into space with him. In 2019, La Martiniquais Baronet, a French firm, boy, I butchered that French word, a French firm that also owns Glen Moray, purchased Cutty Sark. And in the list of 20 most popular Scotch whiskey brands in the world, sometimes it might make it in the top 20, but usually it's down below the top 20. So it's really lost a lot of its popularity. Now, for bottle, label, and marketing, I'm a sucker for green glass. Here you go. And sailing ships. This bottle is a centennial celebration of 100 years of adventure. You can see that there on the bottle. Their marketing efforts in recent decades have simply not been great, and it shows in that this whiskey, again, is not one of the more popular whiskeys. Number 2, J&B Rare. Whiskey companies will frequently put a date on the bottle, and this one says, established 1749, for instance. And that refers back to the founding of the company, the original owner, distiller, etc. That actually has nothing to do with this particular whiskey, and that's the case here with J&B. Justerini and Johnson were the wine merchants who formed the company, but not until 2 generations later did Alfred Brooks buy into the company and rename it Justerini and Brooks. Then Brooks links up with the famous Edinburgh spirits dealer Andrew Usher, and they created this blend, or a blended whiskey known as J&B Club Blend. It wasn't until the 1936 time frame, at the end of Prohibition in America, that this J&B Rare was produced and marketed. It was designed specifically as a lighter whiskey for the American market to compete head-to-head with, you got it, Cutty Sark. So these two, both, notice green bottles, they were competing against one another. And remember how I told you that in 1961, Cutty Sark was the #1 selling Scotch in America? Well, by 1962, J&B was the best-selling Scotch in America. Yet it was largely unknown in Great Britain. By the mid-1980s, it was the second highest-selling Scotch in the whole world. But by the 2020s, it has dropped down to 10th or even a little bit below. In 2010s, the whiskey won several gold and silver medals at various competitions, but most whiskeys do. This whiskey has appeared, though, with several Hollywood movies, like John Carpenter's The Thing, 1982, Moonstruck, 1987, and Caddyshack, 1980, and then over 300 other films and TV shows. I think because of the very visible bottle and label, it shows up. It's easily recognizable, particularly in the German market for some reason, in German movies and TV. This is everywhere. But J&B is still in the top 10 scotches sold in the world, so their marketing has been pretty good, but it has dropped off some recently. I see this bottle in restaurants and bars all over the place. The bottle just plain stands out. So, if I'm going to judge between the history of these two, I'm going to go with Cutty Sark. But for bottle, label, and marketing, while I prefer Cutty Sark with the sailing ship, I acknowledge the label for J&B and their marketing are superior for the win. Price, value, and availability. Cutty Sark is available locally in my area for $18.49 for this 750 milliliter bottle. J&B is available for $21.99. Value is close to the same, but I'm going to give a slight edge to Cutty Sark. And then, so price and value goes to this Cutty Sark. But availability in the stores is the same, but more restaurants and bars have J&B. So, I'm splitting the difference there, but I'll give the price, value, availability edge to Cutty Sark. All right, now let's go in for the nose and tasting. I'll start with the one on my left, and again, I don't know which is which. I do get a little bit of a nose. My nose is totally inadequate for the task, but frequently with scotches I can smell something. And this I've got just a little bit of floral, a little bit of sweetness, maybe some fruit. Grassy. Not a whole lot on the nose. The one on my right. And as is typical, the first one I smell kind of wins. I'm not sure why that wrecks my nose, but it does. This one has less of a nose. Again, very light. Maybe not quite as fruity. Okay, I'm going to give the nose to the one on the left. So now let's move in for the taste. And I will taste the one on the left first. These are both the same proof, and the nose was not overwhelming, so it doesn't really matter which one I taste first. Lightly sweet, fruity. Very good. I mean, I really like this one. A lot of people love to cast aspersions on blended scotches, especially these cheaper ones, but I managed to like them. That's just me. You do you. I'm going to say a little bit of apples and pears going on there, along with some hay. Sweetness is lighter than honey. It's not super sweet, but noticeably sweet. So I'm going to say the emphasis there is on the fruit, pears, apples, maybe green grapes. A little bit of a lingering mouth tingle. The mouth feel on the one on the left, it's not thin, but it's not rich either. So I'm going to say medium mouth feel. There's no real burn up in the sinuses or going down, but just nice tingles here. So this is highly drinkable. Again, the mission of both of these whiskeys was to be a light, pleasant whiskey for the American palate. So that there's no peat smoke that I can determine there. All right, so that's the one on the left. Let me rinse my mouth out with my Topo Chico here. All right. These are so similar. I'm not real sure if I'll be able to tell them apart, because see, that's part of the fun is, can I identify which is which? You know, they're so similar, identifying a winner is going to be hard. Again, very vague nose. This one is not nearly as bright and shiny as the first one. The first one, picture lights at a party, you know, lots of lights, maybe outdoors, maybe even an afternoon party, the sun is shining. Disco music going in the background from the 80s. This one, though, this is darker. This one, I think, has some peat smoke in it. Noticeable, particularly on the finish. But in the main body of this, the sweetness is tamped down with something. And on the finish, I think I'm picking up a little bit of peat smoke. So if the first one is an outside party with bright sunshine and music from the 80s, this one, you're in a film noir, it's night, it's raining, you just come out of a speakeasy, there's a jazz band playing in the background. That's what this is. So two different flavor profiles going on here, and I like both. So can I determine a winner? You know, when they're really pretty different. Wow, this is going to be very difficult. I'm going to say the one on the right may be my favorite taste, and I think it's because of the finish. I'm getting some kind of an ashy peat smoke on the finish. Both of them have a similar mouthfeel, similar burn, but really the difference is the one on the right gives me a finish that says I'm different. It's got some kind of an ashy peat smoke finish. So it's much more subdued than the first one. And I think I'm going to choose the right one as the winner. And I think, which is which, I think this is going to be glass number 1. I think this is Cutty Sark. We'll see. Nope, this is number 2. Okay. I did not understand. I mean, I didn't know there was any peat smoke in J&B. But see, at the start of the show, I said this is take 2. And it was because the same thing happened on take 1. I thought surely I could identify these whiskeys, and I chose wrong. And so for whatever reason, J&B is coming in with a little peat smoke. I didn't think J&B had any peat smoke in it. And so my taste buds are totally different from when I did the review of each of these whiskeys. So J&B for the win. And as far as which and which, I got them wrong. And I got them wrong twice. Okay, because I went through this and I was so disgusted with myself thinking I must have mixed up the glasses when I poured the whiskey. But I get the same exact answer this time around. But when I was reviewing these whiskeys, I thought the peat smoke was in Cutty Sark and that it was darker and richer than J&B. Well, that just totally mystifies me. But see, that's exactly why you do a blind tasting. Is I had a preconceived notion that Cutty Sark would win, that I could easily identify them, and I was wrong. You give me blacked out glasses, and again, my taste buds had them totally reversed. All right, so we have a winner, and that winner is J&B Rare, and the winner is going to get a cocktail. So let me go get a ginger ale cocktail going. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my Tom Collins glass here, or highball glass. I'm not sure there's actually a difference. Here's some Canada Dry Zero Sugar. Pour a little bit of that in there. Now, what I have found with some of these blended scotches, Cutty Sark is worse about it than J&B, is that it's easy for the scotch to get lost in a cocktail. What I noticed with Cutty Sark is that I had to add basically a double dram in order to taste it. I like tasting the whiskey in the cocktail. If I want straight ginger ale, fine. But I want to be able to taste both of them. And sometimes with a weaker whiskey, that's a problem. Okay, stirring, that's a problem. Okay, so this is J&B Rare with Canada Dry, 0 sugar ginger ale. That absolutely works. Now, a lot of people say, well, these whiskeys are designed for cocktails. Sometimes even websites will say that. I'm pretty sure that's what this website will say. But I prefer most of my whiskeys neat and then cocktail occasionally. It is a warm, muggy day here in Fort Worth, and so a cocktail is appropriate. So cheers. And again, we have J&B winning match number 3 in the blended Scotch tournament. This is Stab the Dragon for blended Scotch whiskey reviews out here.